Hello, my name is Rosalind. I got a message in the middle of a snowstorm, just 3 words from my sister. Please, come, help. When I found her, she was barefoot in the snow, 9 months pregnant, shivering, alone. Her husband's family had kicked her out in the middle of the night, like she was disposable. But what if I told you that wasn't even the worst part? What if I told you they delayed her labor, just to steal her inheritance? And my own mother, our own blood, told me I was meddling again. Do you know what it feels like when your family isn't just absent but dangerous? What would you do if the people who should protect you were the ones trying to erase you? I was sitting on my worn-out recliner, a mug of peppermint tea cooling in my hands, watching the snow swirl past the window. Outside, Winona had turned ghostly, white everywhere, street lamps casting a sickly yellow glow that barely reached the sidewalks. It was the kind of night that made the world feel both peaceful and perilous. There's a stillness to snowstorms that I've never trusted. My phone buzzed against the armrest. I didn't expect much, probably another storm warning or a pharmacy text, but the screen flickered with my sister's name, Leanne. I opened the message. Please, come, help. And then, nothing. The typing dots blinked, then vanished. No follow-up, no call. A jolt of electricity hit my chest, and I shot upright. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. I texted back, twice. Are you okay? Where are you? Nothing. Seconds felt like minutes. I tried her husband, Corwin. No response. Typical. I stood, pacing. My tea sat forgotten, the steam long gone. The silence became unbearable. I opened my laptop, pulled up the local radar, thick snow bands covering the whole county. A blizzard warning was flashing red across the top of the screen. She was pregnant, due any day. If her water had broken, if she was out in this storm, I texted again. I'm coming, please hang on. But I needed to know more. I called our mom. Rosalind, she answered, her voice already tired. Have you heard from Leanne? No. Why? She just sent a message, sounded scared, like something was wrong. A long pause. I'm sure it's nothing. You know how dramatic she can be. She's about to give birth. She's got a husband for that. Corwin's responsible. Maybe she's mad he didn't get her ice cream. My jaw tightened. She said help. That's not nothing. Maybe she wants attention. You know how she... I'm not debating this, Mom. I'm going to look for her. You always make things bigger than they are, Rosalind. This is why we can't have a normal conversation. I hung up. I called our brother, Darren. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, what's going on? Did Leanne call you or send a message? Nope. She sent me one. Said help. Then it cut off. Maybe her phone died? Maybe. But I'm going to check on her. Can you come? A beat of silence. You serious? Rosalind, it's dumping snow out there. You really gonna chase ghosts tonight? She's pregnant, alone, in a storm. Let her husband handle it. She chose him. You always act like it's your job to fix everything. I'm not asking your opinion. I was hoping for help. Yeah, well, good luck. I stared at the screen after the call ended. My hand was shaking, but not from the cold. I'd felt this kind of anger before. Old, familiar. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed my keys off the hook. My emergency bag was already packed, old habits from being a nurse. I tossed it in the back of the SUV, grabbed 2 thermal blankets, my first aid pouch, and an extra flashlight. The cold slapped my face as I stepped outside. Wind howled down the street like it was looking for something to tear apart. My boots crunched through the snow that had already piled ankle deep. I turned the ignition. The SUV groaned, but started. Windshield frosted over almost instantly. I scraped at it with one gloved hand while my other fumbled with the defrost. Every second felt stolen. I could still hear my sister's voice, not from the text, something from years ago, when I was 13 and crying after Mom told me I always made things worse. Leanne had sat beside me on the stairs, put her arm around me and whispered, "You're not too much. You just see things faster than they do." Now, she needed me, and I'd be damned if I didn't show up. I opened the GPS on my phone, setting the route to her house on Mill Creek Road. 12 miles. Normally 15 minutes. With the snow, at least triple that. I sent one last message. Hang in there. I'm on my way. I pulled onto the road, wipers smearing ice across the windshield. My headlights barely carved through the white. Visibility? A joke. The town thinned quickly, streetlights swallowed by the storm. Trees bent with the weight of snow. A branch cracked and fell behind me, hitting the road with a thud. No signal. My GPS froze. Perfect. I kept going, slow, steady. The SUV handled better than it had any right to, but the snow kept thickening. My mind played tricks on me. Every shape on the side of the road looked like a person. Every gust of wind sounded like a cry. I leaned closer to the windshield, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered. Then I heard it. A sound, thin, frantic, real. A scream. I hit the brakes. Was that really her voice? Or was my mind turning snow into ghosts? I slammed the brakes. Tires skidded sideways on the icy road, and my seatbelt locked tight across my chest. For a split second, all I heard was the frantic sound of my own breathing. Then, again, clearer this time, sharp and real, another scream. It wasn't in my head. That was her. I threw the gear into park and jumped out of the SUV, not even thinking to shut the door. Wind hit me like a wall, bitter and howling, forcing me to lean forward as I trudged through knee-deep snowdrifts. I turned the flashlight on and swept the beam toward the noise, but the snow fell so thick it barely penetrated more than a few feet. Then I saw her. At the edge of the tree line, a figure slumped over in the snow, her shape barely visible beneath a coat that looked soaked straight through. "Leanne!" I shouted, slipping as I half ran toward her. She turned her head slightly, her lips trembling, her face ghost-white with blue around the edges. "Roz!" I dropped to my knees beside her. Her entire body was shaking uncontrollably. Her breath came in ragged little gasps. Hey, look at me. I'm here." I pulled off my gloves, pressing my hands to her cheeks. They were cold, ice cold. Her lips barely moved. I told her. And she... What? Told who? Her eyes fluttered. "Vera. Said I was a disgrace. In front of the guests. Corwin just watched. He didn't say anything." She moaned suddenly, her hands pressing to her stomach. My stomach turned to stone. "Leanne, are you contracting?" Her nod was so faint I almost missed it. "I think my water broke," she whispered. There was no time to think, no time to process the rage clawing at my throat. "Okay, we're gonna move you, all right? You're not having this baby out here." It took every ounce of strength I had to get her upright. She cried out as I helped her to her feet, half dragging, half carrying her back to the SUV. Her legs barely moved beneath her. I opened the rear door and got her inside, blasting the heat and tossing every blanket I had over her. She was soaked to the bone. I yanked her boots off, pulled her coat open, trying to get the wet layers away from her skin. Her pants were damp, sticky, fluid mixed with blood. The contractions hit hard and fast. "I'm not ready," she said through clenched teeth, her voice rising. "You don't have a choice. Neither of us do." I grabbed my emergency bag from the front seat and opened it beside her. Gloves, flashlight, sterile towels, scissors, alcohol wipes. I had everything I needed. I just never thought I'd have to use it like this. I climbed into the back seat, squeezed between her and the door, and took her hand. "Breathe with me. We've got this. We've done harder things." She shook her head. "They left me, Roz. They pushed me out, like trash." I blinked hard, focusing. "That's not where this ends." She screamed then, curling forward. I checked her, fast. "You're crowning." Her fingers dug into my arm. "It hurts." "I know, but you're doing it. You're doing amazing. Keep going." The minutes stretched like hours. I coached her through every push, every breath, holding her when she shook, wiping her forehead with the sleeve of my coat. I couldn't let her see the fear in my own chest, the racing heartbeat in my throat, and then, there he was. He slid into my hands, slippery and silent. No cry. My breath caught. Come on, little one. I rubbed his back, cleared his nose, patted gently. Nothing. I tried again, rubbing harder, whispering to him, Please, come on. And then, suddenly, a cough. Then a wail, sharp and high-pitched. I laughed through my tears. There you go. That's it. Leanne collapsed back against the seat, sobbing. I wrapped the baby in the thermal blanket, checked his vitals as best I could, then laid him gently on her chest. She held him like she was afraid he'd vanish. He's okay? He's more than okay. But Leanne wasn't. Her skin was getting paler by the second. Her eyes started drifting closed. Leanne, stay with me. No sleeping. She didn't answer. I grabbed my phone. No signal. I tried restarting it. Nothing. I leaned forward, reaching for the radio. Static. I turned to her, brushing damp hair from her face. You hear me? You stay awake. You stay here. You're not going anywhere. Still no answer. I pulled off my coat, wrapping it around her and the baby. I adjusted the heat vents toward her, checked her pulse. Weak. Thready. I had done everything I could, but we were alone. No sirens in the distance, no headlights on the road. Just me, my sister, and her son, born in a car, during a blizzard because she had been left outside like she didn't matter. I sat beside her, keeping her warm with my body, whispering, Don't you give them the satisfaction. Don't let them win. You hold on. You hold on for him. Her lips trembled. She stirred, barely. And then, just as I was beginning to think she might slip away, she opened her eyes. She looked at me with a pain so deep I nearly broke. You were right, she whispered. I should have left. Her voice cracked like a thin sheet of ice. I looked at her, her face still pale, lips dry, eyes heavy. But she was awake, and the words that had just come out of her had the weight of years behind them. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Not right away. I just sat there beside her in the dark, inside the heated cocoon of my SUV, her baby nestled against her chest. His tiny fingers flexed, eyes barely open, unaware he'd just been born into the middle of a storm. Eventually, I helped her sip water, checked her temperature again. It was dropping slowly, but not dangerously now. We were still waiting on emergency services. They were tied up elsewhere, and we weren't a priority. Not yet. They showed up an hour later, lights dimmed under a thick curtain of snow, paramedics bundled up like soldiers. They helped me transfer her into the ambulance while I carried the baby in my arms, my hands trembling not from cold but from anger. I hadn't let myself feel fully until now. I followed them to the hospital in my car, the wipers barely holding up, my headlights pushing through the snow like blunt knives. Once inside, the chaos quieted. The maternity wing of the Winona Community Hospital was nothing fancy. Fluorescent lighting, an old vending machine that probably hadn't been stocked properly in months, nurses who were kind, but clearly stretched thin. They placed Leanne in a private recovery room near the back. The baby, he was fine. More than fine, strong lungs, good color. I sat by the window, watching snow bury the world outside. The storm had shifted from furious to slow and relentless, the kind of snowfall that smothers everything. At some point, I must have nodded off in the chair. When I opened my eyes again, it was early morning. A nurse had brought a tray of oatmeal, untouched, sitting on a tray table beside the bed. Leanne stirred. Her voice was hoarse. Roz? I stood quickly. I'm here. She looked over at the sleeping baby in the little bassinet and then back at me. Her face changed, some mix of gratitude and regret. Do you still have my emergency bag? She asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Yeah, it's in the corner. Can you check the inside pocket? I did. Buried under a pack of gum and an old chapstick was a small black notebook, cloth-bound, worn. No title. I held it up. She nodded slowly. If something had happened, that was my just in case. My fingers hesitated on the cover. You want me to read it? Yes. She looked away. I can't say it out loud. I sat back in the chair, opened the first page. Her handwriting filled every inch, margins packed with notes and arrows. Day 3. She told me I embarrassed her in front of the church group because I didn't reheat the casserole properly. Day 12. Corwin left without saying goodbye. Came home at midnight. Said I needed to get my moods in check. I hadn't said a word all day. Page after page. You're lucky my son puts up with you. Stop making me look like the bad guy in front of my grandkids. Don't bring up old stuff. We've moved past it. Why can't you? I turned another page and froze. Rosalind told me last Thanksgiving that this family would break me. I told her to back off. Told her she was bitter and that she didn't know what it meant to have a family. I lied. I just didn't want to believe she was right. I stared at the page for a long time. Leanne, I said softly, why didn't you leave? She didn't answer immediately. Then her voice cracked. Because I thought if I left, I'd prove them right, that I wasn't strong enough, that I was broken. I stood, placing the journal gently on the table. No, you stayed to keep peace. You stayed because no one had your back. But you're not going back. Not this time. She nodded. Once. Silent, but solid. We sat that way for a while. No words. Just breathing. The soft beep of monitors. The low hum of life returning to a body and a soul long ignored. Later, a nurse came in to check vitals and smiled at the baby, now wrapped snug in a blanket with little foxes on it. The nurse adjusted the IV drip, then paused. There's someone asking about the baby's last name, she said, looking between us. They say it matters, legally. Leanne's jaw clenched. I felt my spine stiffen. Who? I asked. Oh, they didn't say, but they're waiting outside. Leanne looked at me, eyes wide but tired. Roz, I don't think I can do another fight. I reached for her hand. You don't have to. Let me. I stood, heart already pounding. I stepped into the hallway to face whoever was asking questions about a baby they didn't help bring into this world. And there she was. Zinnia, hair perfect, nails glossy pink, holding her phone like she was documenting a fashion launch and not hovering outside a hospital room. She smiled when she saw me. Hey, Roz, you look exhausted. I didn't answer, just took a breath and walked toward her. She greeted me like we were old friends bumping into each other at a brunch spot, like nothing had happened. Hey, Roz, you look exhausted, Zinnia said with that sugary tone she'd perfected years ago, the one that could coat a blade before it sliced. I didn't bother to respond. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting for her to drop the act. She held a coffee cup in one hand, her phone in the other. Her nails were polished in soft pink, the kind of shade you'd pick if you wanted to look harmless. She raised the phone slightly and snapped a quick selfie, pouting her lips just so. Visiting family is the greatest gift, she said to no one, then tapped her screen. I glanced at the hospital corridor behind her, empty except for a nurse rolling a supply cart into one of the nearby rooms. Everything smelled like bleach and baby powder, clean, sterile, too quiet. You here to check on your sister-in-law? I asked finally. Zinnia gave a soft laugh. Oh, please, I'm here for the baby. It took everything in me not to roll my eyes. Of course you are. I walked past her and returned to Leanne's room. She was sitting up now, pale but alert, the baby asleep in the bassinet beside her. Her older son, Noah, was curled up on the chair, cradling a juice box. He looked up at me and said casually, Grandma said we're going to live with her now. Mommy's not coming. I stopped mid-step. She said that? Noah nodded like it was nothing special. She told me last week, before the snow came. She said Mommy made too many problems and that now she'd fix it. She said Daddy agreed. My hands went cold. I turned to Leanne, who had closed her eyes like she was trying to disappear. She said that in front of him? I asked. Leanne didn't speak. Noah continued. She said Mommy will be too tired after the baby, that Grandma will take care of us. It'll be better this way. I knelt beside him. Listen, kiddo. Nobody's taking you from your mom. You hear me? He stared at me, unsure, then nodded. Back at Leanne's bedside, I reached for the overnight bag that had come in with her. As I unzipped it to pull out fresh clothes, something fluttered out from the side pocket. A piece of folded paper, thick, with formal lettering on the top. "What is this?" I asked. Leanne didn't answer right away. I unfolded it. It was titled, Family Agreement for Postnatal Recovery and Support. The language was dense, not legally binding, but that wasn't the point. It stated, in plain enough terms, that, due to prior mental health concerns, and in the interest of stable child-rearing, Leanne would recover within the home of her mother-in-law under guidance and supervision, with limited external influence and family mediation of all child-related decisions. There was a shaky signature at the bottom. Leanne's, dated 3 days before the blizzard. I stared at her. "You signed this?" She looked away. "Vera said it was just to make things easier. She said the hospital might ask questions. She told me if I made it official, we could avoid drama. She said it was just formality." I shook my head slowly, feeling my pulse rise. "No, Leanne, this is not a formality. This is control. This is how they erase you, slowly. Piece by piece. You give them this, and they'll take everything." Leanne's voice broke. I didn't know what to do. She said if I didn't sign it, she'd call CPS and say I wasn't mentally stable. She had Corwin there. He just stood behind her with his arms crossed like I wasn't even in the room. I just wanted peace, Roz. I didn't want another fight. I sat down beside her, shaking my head. They declared war the moment they made you pick between being a wife and being a person. Just then, the door opened. Zinnia stepped inside like she owned the place. "Oh, there you are," she chirped. She looked at the paper in my hands and smiled wider. "Oh, you found the agreement. Great. Less explaining to do." Leanne shrank back into the bed. I stood. "This is coercion, Zinnia. You can't just force someone to sign away their rights under stress. She was due any day." Zinnia sipped her latte. "It's not legally binding. It just keeps things organized." "Organized like kidnapping?" I asked, stepping forward. She tilted her head, still smiling. "You always did have a flair for dramatics. This isn't about you, Roz. It's about what's best for the kids. Leanne is their mother. She's overwhelmed. You can see that. She needs time, support, structure." "No," I said sharply. "What she needs is to heal without people hovering over her with fake concern and thinly veiled threats." Zinnia set the coffee down on the counter, walked closer, lowered her voice. "If you push this, Roz, we'll push back harder. You're not blood. You're just noise." I leaned in, quiet but unshakable. "Then I'll be the loudest noise you've ever heard." She gave one of those slow, cruel smiles she was known for. "Careful what you ask for." But before I could answer, there was a sharp knock at the door. The nurse poked her head in. There's someone here with paperwork. They're asking for the baby to be discharged, said it's been approved." I turned to Leanne. Her face had gone pale again. "They're trying to take him," I whispered. I stepped back into the hospital room as the nurse finished explaining something about standard discharge paperwork and authorized release. Her voice was polite, practiced, but behind her eyes, I could see it, uncertainty. Confusion, maybe. She had no idea she was being used as a pawn in someone else's game. "They said they had approval," the nurse repeated, hesitating at the doorway. "From who?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "I don't know. Just said it came from family, that everything was arranged." Leanne sat upright now, arms protectively curled around the baby, as if someone might come take him straight from her lap. The nurse nodded awkwardly and left us alone. I didn't waste a second. I stepped out into the hallway and turned left toward the family lounge. It was quiet except for the soft hum of the vending machine and the occasional beep from the nurse's station down the corridor. I pulled out my phone, found a quiet corner, and dialed a number I hadn't called in months. Mom picked up on the third ring. "Rosalind?" "Yeah, it's me." Pause. "What's wrong now?" she asked, already defensive. "I need you to listen," I said. "Please, this is serious. Leanne's in the hospital. She had the baby last night, in a blizzard, outside, alone." There was a moment of silence, and for a brief second, I thought maybe, just maybe, this time she'd rise to the occasion, that she'd say, "Tell me where. I'll come right away." Instead, she sighed. I told her not to stir up trouble, always the drama. I warned her what would happen. My chest tightened. She could have died. But she didn't. I didn't know whether to scream or laugh. She gave birth in the back seat of my car, in a snowstorm, because Corwin's mother threw her out. She probably provoked her. You know how she gets. She was 9 months pregnant. Well, she married into that family. She chose them. This is the life she wanted. No, this is what they forced on her, and we all stood by, including you. Her voice went cold. You're meddling again, Rosalind. You've always done this. You think you know better than everyone, but you just stir up more chaos. And then she hung up. I didn't cry. I just stared at the screen, thumb still resting on the call button. Same script, same lines. All my life, I'd been the difficult one, the opinionated one, the problem solver who couldn't leave well enough alone. All I ever did was try to stop the bleeding before it spread too far. I walked slowly back toward Leanne's room, but before I entered, I took a breath and leaned against the wall, trying to steady myself. That call had stung, but I couldn't let it bleed into what needed to happen next. Inside the room, Leanne was rocking gently in the chair, humming something low and broken to the baby. She looked up at me, saw my face, and didn't need to ask. She didn't believe you, did she? She said softly. She never does. Leanne nodded slowly, looking down at her son. I used to think if I could just keep quiet enough, hold things together long enough, they'd see I wasn't the weak one. I pulled the chair close again and sat beside her. You were never weak. She exhaled, eyes wet, but not falling apart. There's something I never told you. Her voice dropped, barely audible. Last fall, I recorded a conversation. Vera was yelling at me, calling me names, accusing me of turning Corwin against her. It was bad, and I saved it, just in case. I straightened in my seat. Do you still have it? She shook her head. Corwin found it. He said he was just clearing space on my phone, backing up photos for me, but then I couldn't find the file. He deleted it, I said, more statement than question. She nodded. When I asked, he said it was better that way, that I shouldn't keep reliving moments like that. Moments like that are the ones people need to remember, I said quietly. I thought maybe he was right. That maybe I was holding on to things that made it worse. But now, her hands tightened on the baby's blanket. Now I realize he just didn't want me to have proof. I stood again and grabbed the notepad from the tray table. Then we'll make our own proof. This time, it won't be erased. I wrote down dates, patterns, phrases Leanne remembered. I asked about text messages, voicemails, screenshots. Every detail mattered. We would build a trail they couldn't sweep under a rug. If they wanted peace, they should have left her in one. A soft knock on the door broke the moment. Zinnia walked in like she had tickets to a show she didn't want to miss. Hi again, she said, holding a business card between two fingers like it might burn her. This is from our family lawyer, in case things get difficult. Things already are, I replied, not taking the card. She gave a tight-lipped smile. Look, our family just wants peace, a smooth process, no drama. You left her outside? In winter, with a baby inside her, that wasn't peace. That was attempted abandonment. Come on, Roz, don't twist this. We were trying to de-escalate. You escalated it when you decided you knew better than her own doctors, than her own voice, than her own damn life. Her smile twitched. Corwin said this would happen, said you'd stir the pot. And you know what? I said, stepping forward and finally taking the card, just to crush it in my palm. Maybe it's time the pot boiled over. She blinked. That was the first real reaction I'd seen from her. Careful, she said. You're just her sister. You don't get to make decisions. Then let's see how many people I can convince. She opened her mouth again, but I didn't let her finish. I turned, walked out of the room and down the hallway. My hands were shaking, but I didn't care. I stopped by the nurse's station, asked for the name of the hospital's legal administrator, then took out my phone and opened my notes. If they want to fight, I whispered to myself, then let's make it public. The hospital footage arrived mid-morning. I'd filed the request first thing, before coffee, before brushing my hair, before even letting my breath settle from the chaos of the night before. It had taken just under 2 hours for the compliance officer to send over a USB with labeled timestamps. I borrowed a laptop from the front desk nurse who looked at me like I'd just asked to borrow her wedding ring, but she handed it over after I explained. I brought it into one of the side consultation rooms and plugged it in. The screen blinked to life, grainy, black and white. The timestamp said 11:43 p.m., 2 nights ago. I fast-forwarded, and then I saw it. Leanne on the porch of her home, barefoot, coat unzipped, one arm around her belly. Zinnia standing in the doorway with crossed arms, and Vera pointing a finger like a school principal on a power trip. Then Corwin stepped out. Didn't speak. Just stood there, watching. Leanne's lips moved, clearly saying something, likely pleading. Vera stepped forward, said something else. Zinnia grabbed a bag, shoved it into Leanne's arms, then stepped back inside. The door slammed shut. Leanne stumbled down the stairs, snow swirling. There it was, clear as day. They threw her out. I paused the video and sat back. My hands were clenched so tightly around the chair's plastic arms, I felt the burn of my nails against my palms. There was no mistaking it, no way to spin it. They abandoned a pregnant woman, my sister. I closed the laptop and took a long breath. My stomach turned, not just from the footage, but from knowing they were here, in the same building, pretending they were the ones trying to do what was best. I returned to Leanne's room, footage still burning in my mind. The baby was sleeping in her arms. She looked up when I walked in. "Did you find it?" I nodded. "It's worse than I thought." She didn't ask to see it, she just closed her eyes. I already lived it once. Before I could say anything else, a nurse entered. "There's a group asking to speak with you," she said, directing her words to me. "They say it's about custody." My heart didn't race. It didn't even shift. It just locked into place, like it knew this moment had been waiting to happen. "Where are they?" I asked. "Front lobby." "Tell them we'll be right there." I looked to Leanne. "You up for this?" She shook her head. "Not really." I knelt by her side. "Do you trust me to speak for you?" She squeezed my hand. "More than anyone else." I stood, pulled on my jacket, and took the USB from my pocket. At the lobby, Vera stood in front like a spokesperson, Corwin beside her in a too-tight suit, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Zinnia was tapping on her phone, pretending not to notice me, and next to them, a man in a gray suit holding a folder. "Miss Finch?" he asked. "That's me. We've come to collect the child on behalf of his paternal guardians. An agreement was signed." I held up my hand. "Let me stop you there." I handed him the USB. "Security footage from 2 nights ago. Watch it before you finish that sentence." He looked down at it, then back at me. "We have a petition. You have a draft. That's not the same." Vera stepped forward. "We're simply here to reunite the child with his rightful family. This is a misunderstanding. You left her outside in a blizzard." She blinked. "That's not what happened. It's on video, and we both know what that means." Zinnia finally looked up. "Rosalind, don't turn this into a circus. We're trying to resolve this privately. You escalated it the second you put a woman in labor out in sub-zero temperatures." Corwin mumbled. "She was screaming. It scared the other kids." I turned to him. "She was in pain, because she was going into labor. That's not an excuse. That's a medical emergency." He shrugged. "We didn't think she'd what? Bleed? Collapse? Give birth on the side of the road?" The man in the suit stepped between us. "Let's take this somewhere private." We followed him into a consultation room. Once inside, he opened his folder and slid a document across the table toward me. A petition, unsigned. "Rosalind Finch, acting outside of legal guardianship, has interfered with parental custody and incited familial separation," it read. I looked at it, let it sit there for a few seconds. then folded it in half, then in half again, and dropped it in the trash can. Zinnia's eyes flared. "You can't just throw that away." "I just did." Vera spoke next, her voice sharp and rehearsed. "We can still make this right. We don't want a public battle." "Good," I said. "Then stop creating one." Silence. Then the hospital administrator entered the room. She looked over the scene and cleared her throat. "As of now," she said, "no child is to be discharged to any party unless ordered by a judge or released with written consent from the mother." "Thank you," I said quietly. Vera's mouth tightened. "We'll take this further." I turned to Leanne, who had been sitting quietly the whole time. She stood now, shoulders shaking but firm. She looked at each of them, her husband, his sister, and his mother. "I'm done being afraid of you," she said. "You don't own me, and you will not own my child." Zinnia opened her mouth again, but I stepped in front of her. "We're finished here." As we left the room, Vera followed us to the door. She didn't speak. She just stood behind the glass, watching. And when I turned back to look at her, she mouthed the words, "This isn't over." I smiled, just slightly, and mouthed back, "You're damn right it's not." By the time I got back to my apartment that afternoon, my nerves were a tight coil wound too far. I hadn't slept in 2 nights. My body ached, but my mind was on fire. I opened the laptop with fingers that still trembled, not from fear anymore, but from restraint. The security footage I'd received from the neighbor loaded faster than I expected. The file was labeled simply, "Front Porch, Cam, 12/21/24. No dramatics, no comments, just proof." I pressed play. The timestamp showed 7:48 p.m. Snow was falling hard, already layering the porch and stairs. There was Leanne, just a silhouette at first. Then the porch light flickered on, and I saw her clearly. She stood at the door, barefoot, arms around her belly. Her face was red, lips moving fast, and though there was no audio, I could read it plain as day. She was pleading. Zinnia stood inside the doorway, arms folded, wearing some glittery jacket like she was headed to a holiday party. She rolled her eyes. Behind her, Vera emerged, wearing that burgundy sweater I'd seen in so many church photos. Vera leaned in, said something sharp, and pointed toward the stairs. Then came Corwin. He stepped into the frame like a man walking into someone else's mess, hands in his pockets, not a word spoken. He didn't stop it, didn't shield her. Leanne's face crumbled. She took one step back, then another. Zinnia tossed a small bag toward her. It landed in the snow with a thud. Then the door slammed. Leanne stood there for a second, just stood. She bent to pick up the bag, slipped, caught herself, and started walking, alone, down those ice-covered steps, into a storm she should never have been in. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just clicked save, backed it up twice, and emailed it to myself and 2 lawyers. Then I sat very still, staring at the frozen last frame. My sisters back to the camera, vanishing into white. I didn't know what else they'd done, but I knew this much. No one could bury this now. After taking a moment to center myself, I walked to the small kitchen table stacked with hospital papers. I hadn't had time to go through them before, but now I moved through them like a forensic analyst. One document stopped me cold. It was a hospital referral slip, an official form from her OB's office. The top said, "Induction scheduled, December 15th. But at the bottom, there was a crossed-out line and a second copy stapled behind it, dated December 29th, 2 full weeks later. There was a handwritten note on the margin of the new copy. It wasn't signed, but I recognized the handwriting. Corwin's lazy all-caps scrawl. "Let's hold until first. Trust me, timing matters. Timing matters." I snapped a photo of the form and searched back through Leanne's text history on the shared cloud backup she'd given me access to after the incident. A message from Vera, dated December 1st, said, "Remember, if the baby comes before the 20th, everything stays in your name. After that, well, rules are rules." That was it. That was the play. It wasn't just pride or punishment. This was about money. If she gave birth before the 20th, she was entitled to a trust left behind by Corwin's father. If she didn't, the assets reverted to the next eligible heir, Zinnia. I couldn't believe it. They delayed her labor on purpose, to cheat her, to cut her out. I didn't waste time. I called Marlene Simmons, the only family law attorney in town I actually respected. We met at her office within the hour. I want an emergency restraining order, I told her, and a petition for custody clarification. Marlene was a sharp woman, mid-50s, no makeup, hair pulled back like she had more important things to do than impress anyone. She read the referral slip, then looked up. You know what this is? It's evidence of fraud. Medical interference. Intentional obstruction of inheritance law. She leaned back, lips pursed. It's more than that. It's motive. She opened a drawer, pulled out the necessary forms, and slid them across the table. If this was a chess game, I muttered as I signed, they just lost their queen. Marlene gave a rare smirk. And you just took the first pawn. We finalized the paperwork. She promised to file it with the judge that evening and submit the footage with the emergency packet. By the time I left her office, dusk was settling again. I stopped at the grocery store to grab something hot for Leanne, then drove back to the hospital, heart still pacing faster than it should have. Back in the maternity wing, Leanne was asleep, but I left the food on the side table and kissed her forehead. As I stepped into the hallway, my phone buzzed. I pulled it out and stared at the screen, a social media post, Zinnia's account. Pray for us. We're being attacked by our own family. Some people just can't let go of bitterness. The photo below it was an old picture of her and Corwin smiling next to a baby shower cake. I let out a laugh. Bitter, cold. If it was war they wanted. Let's give them something real to pray about. 3 days after the confrontation at the hospital, I walked through the heavy doors of the Winona County Courthouse with a sense of calm I hadn't felt in weeks. Not because the nerves were gone, they weren't, but because this time, I wasn't coming in with hope. I was walking in with proof. Leanne walked beside me, her steps careful, the baby wrapped tightly against her chest in a carrier. She didn't speak much on the ride there, only asked once, "Do you really think this will change anything?" I looked at her, eyes steady. It already has. Marlene, our lawyer, was already waiting in the hallway, her bag neatly set beside her chair, a yellow legal pad balanced on her lap. We sat together in a small side room before the hearing. She laid out the timeline one last time. First, the footage, then the falsified induction documents, followed by text messages, screenshots, statements, including one from a nurse at the hospital who had witnessed Vera attempt to initiate discharge behind Leanne's back. The journal entries were there too, not because we wanted to expose every personal detail, but because they painted a pattern, a slow burn campaign of control and isolation. Leanne's hands trembled slightly as she reviewed the papers. "You've already survived worse," I told her gently. This part is just the cleanup." She gave me a weak smile, eyes glistening but firm. At 10:03 a.m., they called our case. Inside the courtroom, Vera sat upright like a politician about to deliver a keynote speech. Pearls, blazer, hair swept back, a picture of composure. Corwin sat beside her, rigid, his foot tapping. And Zinnia? She was already holding her phone up subtly beneath the bench, fingers moving fast, probably updating her followers. Marlene stood without hesitation. "Your Honor, we'd like to begin with a piece of video evidence." The judge nodded. They played the footage. The moment it started, the room shifted. You could feel it, every breath pulled tighter, every eye locked forward. There was Leanne, standing on the porch, snow falling thick around her. Her body hunched, frightened, holding her belly like it might fall apart in her hands. Then Vera, then Zinnia, then Corwin, still, silent, and complicit. And then came the shove, the door slamming shut. Leanne left in the cold. No one spoke, not even Vera. Marlene moved on. Next, I'd like to present the updated induction schedule. Original date, December 15th. Adjusted date, December 29th. The note from Mr. Corwin reads, "Let's hold until first. Trust me, timing matters." Gasps weren't common in courtrooms, but that one got a few. The judge looked up. "Mr. Corwin, would you like to explain?" Corwin shifted. "It was just a suggestion. I thought maybe she needed more time. The baby wasn't in distress. The baby was born in the back of a car, Marlene said flatly. Zinnia tried to interject. We were trying to keep things calm. That message was taken out of context. The context is your brother's wife was pushed out into a blizzard, Marlene shot back. The judge turned to Vera. Anything to add, Ms. Kent? Vera sat tall. Families fight. That doesn't make us monsters. No, but footage of forced expulsion during a snowstorm might, the judge said sharply. Silence. It didn't take long. After deliberation, the court issued the following. Rosalind Finch was granted temporary guardianship powers to advocate on Leanne's behalf while she recovered. Leanne retained full custody. Vera Kent was suspended from her leadership positions in her church-affiliated nonprofit, pending investigation. Corwin Finch was barred from contacting the children or entering the family home without court-appointed supervision. Zinnia received a formal warning for public defamation. I didn't smile. Not in the courtroom. I sat still, hands folded, and exhaled slowly. Outside, a few local reporters were already waiting. I instinctively stepped in front of Leanne and the baby, shielding them from the camera flashes. Zinnia was standing off to the side, phone still in hand. Her social media post was being ripped apart in real time by online commentators, community leaders, even some of her own followers. A local anchor stepped up, holding a microphone toward me. Ms. Finch, would you like to make a comment on today's ruling? I looked straight at her. This wasn't just about family. It was about what we let people get away with, until we don't. I didn't answer her right away. How do I even start again? Leanne had asked, her voice so soft it barely rose above the ticking of the baby monitor in my living room. She sat beside me on the couch, one hand wrapped around a cup of tea, the other gently resting on her son's sleeping form. We'd just gotten back from the courthouse a day earlier. The silence in my apartment, usually welcome, now felt weighty, as if the walls themselves were exhaling everything we'd been holding in. I looked at her. This woman who'd once called herself broken, who had walked through hell with a baby in her belly and her dignity in tatters, and I saw something different now. She didn't know it yet, but she had already started again, just by surviving. Start small, I finally said. Start with today. Feed the baby, drink the tea, sleep. Tomorrow, you make a list. Groceries, diapers, maybe new dreams. She gave a breath that could have been a laugh or a sigh. New dreams. I'm not even sure what those look like anymore. I think, I told her, they'll show up the moment you stop chasing the ones other people forced on you. Later that week, she moved into a little rental house not far from the river, an older place with chipped paint and a porch that creaked with every step. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She picked it out herself, signed the lease, arranged her own utilities. It was the first time in years she'd done anything like that without asking permission. I stopped by a few days later with groceries, some basics, some not-so-basics, like that brand of honey she liked that no store ever seemed to carry. I also brought a baby blanket I'd fixed up, stitching over the tears and relining the corners. It was the same one she'd used for Noah as a newborn. Do you think he'll remember any of this? She asked as we folded laundry together on her tiny kitchen table. No, I said. But he'll remember how you held him. He'll remember the way your voice calmed him down. That kind of love sticks. We sat in silence for a while after that, folding tiny socks. A few nights later, Leanne sent me a link. It was a video, just 2 minutes long. In the opening frame, she looked straight into the camera, hair pulled back, no makeup, just her, raw and open. My name is Leanne, she said. And I gave birth in a snowstorm because I was thrown out, because I was told I was a burden, a mistake, a failure. But my sister saved me. She picked me up off the side of a road in the middle of a blizzard, and she reminded me that I wasn't any of those things. This is for anyone who's ever been told they're too much, too broken, too loud. You're not. You deserve better. And sometimes the first step out of the storm is letting someone walk beside you. I watched the whole thing twice before I could move. She didn't ask for revenge, didn't name names, but it was all there. The truth. Within hours, the video had gone viral. People shared it across platforms. Comments poured in, other women, men, even teenagers, telling their own stories. Stories about being gaslit, pushed out, left behind. One woman wrote, "Your story is mine. Thank you for surviving loud enough for both of us." A local news station picked it up, then a national one. Advocacy groups reached out. People wanted interviews, appearances, sponsorships. Leanne declined them all. "I said what I needed to say," she told me. "Now I want to live." My name started trending too, much to my discomfort. A few people called me a hero. I didn't feel like one. I didn't save her. I just showed up when others didn't. Meanwhile, Vera's world began to crack. I heard through mutual acquaintances that her position on the board of the women's charity had been quietly revoked, that her weekly luncheon group had stopped sending invites. She hadn't shown up to church in 2 weeks. One Tuesday afternoon, while walking past the downtown tea shop, I saw her sitting inside alone. Her cup untouched, her eyes hollow. I didn't stop. Some kinds of justice don't come with handcuffs. They come with silence, with doors that don't open anymore, with names that don't get spoken. And yet, there were still things that lingered. One morning, I walked through the park, snow falling gently like confetti, and realized I still thought about the way Mom hung up that day, how she never called back, never asked how Leanne was, never said she was wrong. Maybe she never would. Maybe some wounds don't heal the way we want them to. Maybe we just learn to carry them differently. After a month, I started volunteering at a women's shelter. A few hours a week at first, organizing supplies, helping with intake paperwork. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt like something. Leanne started taking online classes again. She talked about becoming a paralegal, something steady, something she could own. The baby, Eli, she named him, grew stronger every day. He had Leanne's eyes and Corwin's dimples, though we tried not to mention that. He smiled more often than any newborn I'd ever seen. One afternoon, as I held him on my lap, his tiny hand wrapped around my finger, I thought about that night in the snow, about the sound of his cry, sudden and sharp, and how it had pierced through all the darkness. They left her in the cold. But she survived. We both did. Not just to keep breathing, but to tell someone else. Don't go back into the storm. Sometimes, family doesn't break you with fists, but with silence, control, and the quiet dismissal of your worth. Leanne's story isn't just about survival. It's about reclaiming your voice when no one wants to hear it, and standing your ground when others expect you to fall. So now I ask you, have you ever had to choose between peace and truth, between keeping the family happy and keeping yourself alive? Let us know in the comments. Your story matters. And if this touched you in any way, don't forget to subscribe for more true family stories that go deeper than blood.